So, what's this remarkable transformation that I'm talking about? I'm going to use this example of British cycling. There's only one game in town when it comes to professional sport, and that's winning things. And if you look at our performance over the Olympics throughout the years, you can see that it doesn't really add up to much. There's a fair spattering of bronzes in there, possibly a few more silvers, but the gold line, apart from maybe I don't know what went on in 1908, somebody must have been drinking special substances then.
Yeah, in London.
Pardon?
Yeah, in London.
Was it in London again? Well done, thank you. Apart from 1908, there really isn't very much to write home about. When it comes to the Tour de France, it's been running since 1903. The first time we won a yellow jersey, in other words, we won a stage, let alone the race. We won a stage, was in 1962. The next was Chris Foreman, 94. You can see the dates for yourselves. Sean Yates, David Miller. Again, these are only stage wins. Simpson's best overall finish was 6th in 1962. That was the best overall finish ever to that point. Bournemouth, Yates and Miller were nowhere near the top. And Robert Miller came 4th in 1984. So a race that's been run since 1903. That's the best we can do in all of that time. And this, if you're going to win a race in cycling, this is the race to win. Clearly. Then something happened. And it was in the shape of money and people. Lottery funding started going into the sport during 1997. And that had a direct and immediate effect on the appointment of the first performance director in 1997. We put into place a structured program of coaching and development for sportsmen. It professionalised the sport overnight. Turned it into something that had just been something that people did as a bit of a hobby, which is something that people did more as a job. And then this guy turns up in 2003, David Brailsford. And he was particularly involved in winning Sky sponsorship for the sport, and was instrumental in a huge increase of funding that was applied to the sport from 2009 with the sole aim of looking to win the Tour de France. And the moment these guys start to get involved, suddenly things change. The moment we start looking at professionalising the sport and growing and developing the sport, suddenly we start winning stuff. And since 2000, we've actually won more golds than ever before. If you added up all the golds before 2000, it would be less than the sum since. If you look at our post-war performance, it's, well, I don't need to show you, it's pitiful. It's pitiful. And across the 50s, 60s, 70s and 80s, 1 silver and 5 bronze combined. We really were a laughing stock. But, as I say, there was this truly amazing acceleration that went on. And of course, what happened with the Tour de France? Completely transformed. Wiggins got 4th in 2009, raised to 3rd, so suddenly it's the highest finish ever. We won it in 2012 with another Brit coming 2nd. And Froome, if there was a Tour de France, if the Tour de France is the race to win, then the year to race it in, to win it is the 100th year. Well, he did. Froome won it in this year, the 100th Tour, and he also won what's called the Beast of Provence, the Mont Ventoux, which is one of the stages, particularly arduous hill climb. He happened to win that one as well, which is the stage on which Tommy Simpson died in 1967. So there's all kinds of parallels to our cycling history going on. So it really is, from the point of view of cycling, a truly incredible story. And there we are, world domination. World domination. From complete laughing stock to there ain't nobody near us. Nobody near us whatsoever. And you have to ask yourself, right, how did this happen? Why did this happen? And it is widely down and credited to one man, who sees himself as an orchestra conductor, but applies some very simple but powerful techniques to how he runs training and development, if you will, with British cycling. And what I want to do now is just run a bit of video, an interview that was completed with him, just so that you can hear him explain how he goes about doing things.
The demands of the event we want to win, so we really figure out what would it take to win whatever it is we want to win. We then prioritise, because you know you can't win everything. You know, you will lose more than you win, that's for sure, so decide what you want to win and when. And then we work back to where we are today and look at the gap between where we are today and what we want to win, and create a plan and execute it.
Now I know you're all about marginal gains. Just explain to me what that means. What are the tiny details that you look for when you're coaching?
Well, the whole principle of marginal gains came from the idea that if you broke down everything that could impact on a cycling performance, absolutely everything you could think of, and then you improved every little thing by 1%, when you clump it all together, you're going to get quite a significant increase in performance. So we set about looking at everything we could. I mean, some things are fundamental, like fitness, nutrition, you know, biomechanics, etc. But there are other things which might seem, you know, right on the periphery, but very, very important. So, you know, posture when you sleep, having the right pillow, having the same pillow, so you don't sleep on different pillows all the time when you move from hotel to hotel in training. Hygiene is extremely important, and so how do you generally know how to clean your hands? And when you wash your hands, if you just ask people to wash their hands, there's always, if you put dye on the mat, there's little bits between the hands and at the base of the thumb here, which always people don't wash. You know, so if you know all those things, you're going to get ill a little bit less. And they're all little things, but if you clump them all together, you improve.
How on earth did you factor in the Tour de France to start with, and then coming into the Olympics? Because anybody looking at that on paper would think that's bonkers. You'll never do both. You'll never be successful in both arenas.
Well, you weren't alone in thinking that. It was an ambitious project to start the Team Sky and the Tour de France team, and Britain had never won the Tour de France, so we wanted to set out and win it within 5 years with a clean British rider. Managed to do it in 2.5, which was fantastic, but it was always bumped up against the Olympics, the Tour de France this year. So it was a big challenge. But essentially, from my point of view, I'm more of an orchestra conductor, and my job is to have a fantastic violinist and cello player and a drummer, and essentially that's the coaching staff, and we've got brilliant coaches.
They're your secret squirrels?
No, the secret squirrel's a little bit different. They're more like R&D and innovation, so they're a small group of people led by Chris Boardman, who look at, outside of cycling, into industry, into the military, into all aspects of, industry, and trying to find where latest innovations are happening and see if there's anything that's applicable to cycling. But they do a great job.
What are some of the key things that Mr. Brailsford had to say? We figure out what it will take to win and what we want to win. It's being selective about what he goes after. We prioritise what we want to win when, so we start thinking about it in terms of time. This really important thing, clear recognition, yeah? We will lose more than we win. We will compete. We work back to where we are today. We look at the gap, we create a plan, and we execute it. And last and by no means least, we look out of cycling for the best, latest innovations, the secret squirrels, as he called it. What do those things sort of mean? If we were trying to get inside his head, what would we see? Well, one is have clear goals for your business. Remember when I spoke about cycling being a metaphor, for your business? Well, one thing is if you're going to run, if you're going to enter into races, or even if you're going to make a journey, your goal is your destination, isn't it? You need to pick your competitions. You can't compete on everything. You're thinking about price as a particular area for competition. You can't compete on every single price that you've got either. Be honest, in fact be ruthlessly honest about your current performance and where the real issues are, not what you'd like to think they are. Work out what it's going to take to win, plan to close that gap, execute that plan. Interesting use of words there that comes up, execute. Search out brilliance elsewhere, don't be afraid to look outside. That was the point I made in my own article. It doesn't have to be from the IT channel or even business where you look for examples of excellence that you can apply. And strive for ways to apply it. Now, just semantics. I asked you the difference between following a plan and executing a plan. What kinds of words does the word follow evoke? in your mind? What is following a plan about?
Being reactive rather than
Right, being reactive rather than
proactive.
Proactive. Yeah, yeah.
Sheep-like.
A big bump?
Sheep-like.
Sheep-like, yeah. Very passive, almost scared of the plan, in some ways. And yeah, if you just simply look up what follow means, it's a passive word. Track, obey, respect. Adhere to is possibly the closest it gets, but even with adhere to, the implication is that somebody else has written it and you're just following it. Whereas execute is all these strong words. You know, implement, effect, complete, accomplish, finish, fulfill. I've worked with many project managers in my professional career, and the good ones will always use this word, and they will always be pretty ruthless in delivering plans. They chase them down, they make them happen. Yeah? Grit and tenacity are two major components of doing this. Having a mindset where you don't give up. Just because you tried something once doesn't mean it's a failure. You can always improve and try again. And certainly, if you look at Dave Brailsford's background, he is an individual who exhibits alarming levels of grit and determination. I haven't told you any of his story, but just to say, for the sake of it, you know, he left home when he was 15. He decided to get on a boat and a plane and go to the south of France and join a cycling team in France to learn how to cycle. He got there, they all thought he was nuts, he couldn't speak any French, they took advantage of him in terms of they didn't pay him properly for when he won races, but he did not give up. You know, so you're talking to somebody with massive levels of ambition, grit, tenacity and energy. So, the segregation of marginal gains thing. Yeah? What's so brilliant about it? Well, let's go back to what he said. You break everything down, you improve everything just a little, and then, to use Dave's own words, or Sir Dave's own words, you clump it all together and get a significant increase. And that's really where it comes from. That's your marginal gain, and that's your aggregation of. How do you do it? You map out every single thing that affects performance. Right down to, in your case, in any business case, you know, smiling at customers. The greeting that you give people when they walk through the door, the way that you answer the telephone. Even a font size on your advertising. We'll look at that in a bit more detail in a moment. You'll be surprised how that can influence readership and readability of your marketing. Then you take all of those factors and you think about how could I improve them? Just a bit. Just a bit. And you bring it all together. Talking about cycling, he mentioned some of the most obvious things. Yeah, he spoke about, you know, fitness and nutrition, the biomechanics, which is kind of the geometry of the bike compared to the cyclist. So you're getting the optimum leverage out of them. But also these other things around sleep posture. Yeah? The Tour de France is a 21-day race. Riders are on bikes for 6 hours a day, and every single night they're in a different place. Different beds every single night. The most important thing about sport, about this sport, one of the other things that came in, one of the secret squirrel activities, was to stop using cyclists as trainers. The guy that took over as head trainer in the early days was an ex-swimming coach, where they go about training entirely differently. And it's not about how many races you've done, it's about your recovery and setting up your races in relation to your recovery. And that had a massive effect on how well people started to perform and an appreciation of, yeah, getting rest is really, really vital. And this business to do with hygiene and hand washing, yeah, if you're staying in that many different hotels, all those different things that you're touching over those 21 days, you might pick up a terrible stomach bug. Even if you pick up something that just nudges your performance that bit, you're operating at a level where even just that little change is going to make a difference, where you could have won a stage and you come second. There's other things, you know, some of which you think, yeah, they're obvious. Wind tunnel training to perfect aerodynamics, stuff that had never been done before. Muscle warming pants, worn between races, yeah? If any of you in the room have ever done any exercise, you'll know that if you don't warm up properly and you start doing weights or running vigorously, you'll end up with a hurt muscle. I know from personal experience, you know, that can put you away from the gym for 2 to 3 weeks. It's no small thing. So doing this sort of thing is really important. Lightweight track tyres being used on the road. Oh, you couldn't do that, but they did. A tour bus, a special dedicated tour bus that was actually completely configured inside, special seating and lighting to aid prep for the race and in particular recovery from the race. And a dedicated driver, this sounds absolutely bizarre, but anyway, a dedicated driver, a driver whose job is nothing else other than to drive that bus from one venue to the next to make sure that the riders arrive in good time and that they're not stressed. More points. Kitchen's overseen by a dedicated chef. Same issue, isn't it, really? Your chances of getting food poisoning multiply up. 21 hotels in 21 days. Maybe we'll get something. An equipment base based on mainland Europe so that they could supply the necessary parts for bikes to be made up at any point really quickly and really easily. Previously they were being brought in from the UK. Accommodation is fully prepped up front. Do you know the individual mattresses these guys sleep on, the actual density of those mattresses is worked out in relation to their body weight? I mean, it's crazy. They're fitted with hypoallergenic sheets. The rooms have got air conditioning in them that don't just cool them, they sterilise the air. That's how far it goes. They've thought of everything to keep these guys in tip-top condition. And yeah, this dedicated sports psychologist. This is the guy that deals with the chimps and the gremlins. He gets inside riders' heads and works out what are the barriers that are stopping them from being supreme. And he helps them to use these techniques to control their thoughts, yeah, and help them keep in tip-top condition. There's a story going around about Victoria Pendleton, who when she goes on a downer before a race, it used to take her an hour apparently to get back out of there. Using these techniques, she can do it in 5 minutes. Yeah, that's how effective it is to these people. And that's the goal. Cyclists don't have to worry a thing about anything else other than cycling. They can concentrate on delivering to their unique ability. So it's quite impressive stuff.